Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we tell it like it is. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion posted each Tuesday during the season. The huddle features WeAreSC columnists, staff writers, and historians. We first start off with the pregame show, where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. Let's meet the panelists. A WeAreSC columnist who writes WeAreSC.com's The Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways. In addition to regular season football and basketball reports, he also hosts his own podcast show entitled Locked On USC. That's Marc Kulkin. The editor-in-chief of WeAreSC.com, columnist, national recruiting guru, producer, and moderator of WeAreSC's Friday's Four Downs video show and Five Things video show, which is posted on YouTube and WeAreSC.com after each and every USC home and away football game. He's a graduate of USC, Erik McKinney, a former William Jewell College defensive back and WeAreSC columnist who writes the popular WeAreSC.com column Musings with Arledge and the well-received Musings with Arledge solo video edition. He's a graduate of the USC Law School, Chris Arledge, and a weekly WeAreSC columnist who writes Friday's The Obvious, Not So Obvious, From the Press Box, IMHO Sunday, the WeAreSC.com travel guide, and an active member of the Football Writers Association of America, your moderator and producer of Inside the Trojans Huddle. That's me, Greg Katz. Folks, if you enjoy WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, we thank you and strongly encourage those of you watching on sites like YouTube to click on the like and red subscriber buttons. It's greatly valued and appreciated and is free. You can also listen to Inside the Trojans Huddle on most available podcast sites. And friends, speaking of WeAreSC.com, we're offering first-time subscribers unlimited premium access for just $1. That's $1 for 1 month or $54.99 for a year. If you're not already a full-time premium subscriber, you won't want to miss the USC website that really does tell it like it is. All right, let's get into it, guys. Therapy, suicide watch, whatever you want to call it, group hug. Panel, we kick off the first quarter of the huddle with a review of the Trojans' 48-20 blowout loss to Notre Dame last Saturday night in delirious Notre Dame Stadium and in front of a national television audience on NBC. After the Trojans lost and looking at this week's latest AP Top 25, men of Troy are now number 18 in the AP Top 25 poll, with future Trojan opponents, including number 14 Utah this Saturday in the Coliseum, number 5 Washington, number 9 Oregon, that game's at Oregon, and number 25 UCLA. Panel, the Trojans are 6-1 overall, but are still 4-0 in the Pac-12 standings, on top. Lincoln Riley is taking major local and national media heat for how he and his team performed against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, despite its overall winning record. Okay, panel, here we go. Your overall thoughts, impressions, and comments on the USC Notre Dame game. Objectively, who or what stood out, good or bad? What was the key to the game? As always, leadoff hitter. We were all there, by the way, either in the press box or in the stands, so you're getting a firsthand account. Let's begin with Marc Kulkin. Marc?
Yeah, you want to know what stood out, huh? Well, we can start with Caleb Williams, 3 interceptions. USC's offense, 5 turnovers. At least the sense of lack of urgency throughout the game, including in the fourth quarter. What else stood out? The offensive line struggled, and it might be getting worse as we keep going on week from week. This has been a 4-game, progression that we've been seeing the offense, the team in general, not looking prepared and ready to go. It might be time to shake things up, specifically with the offensive line. You know who really stood out? His name is Xavier Watts. Never heard of him before this game, but literally, I think he won every award that's possible this year in that game. 2 interceptions, fumble force, pick and scoop for a touchdown. It's what legends are made of. I guess on a positive side, you saw that USC's defense actually gave, I think, the type of effort and return that I think we were hoping for throughout the year. That was, even though you look up the scoreboard and you see 48 points, we know they weren't responsible for that. Especially, you had talked about the scoop and score. You had a 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown on special teams. But they're still showing things that their weakness. They did not get to the quarterback. They gave up a couple of big plays, nothing dramatic. But when you're playing on a short field, their backs were up against the wall. They did as much as they could, considering everything that was going on. The biggest takeaway for me was, like I said, the team just did not look prepared for this environment, for this game. We've heard Lincoln Riley use a lot of coach speak for these past few weeks. Everybody circles their calendar when USC comes to play. I got news for everybody. USC circles this game once the schedule is released. Every single year, both programs identify this game. It's important. It means more than just any other game. I think USC came into this game approaching it like, you know what? We're going to play Arizona State. Well, that game was a struggle as well. I don't know if the message is getting lost between the coaching staff and the players, but the constant rhetoric of, the players in the right position, but they're not executing. With the other team circles the calendar. They did things that we weren't anticipating. Well, you can't have Caleb Williams coming up after the game and saying, you know what, they did everything we expected. Well, somewhere there's a disconnect, because by far that was a disappointing performance. All I got out of this trip was a new pair of jeans. That's it.
Well, thanks for sharing. That's good to know. Erik, you were there. You were sitting next to me in the press box. What did you see?
I think the thing that really stands out from this one is this is maybe the second game in a row, but certainly easily to see the first game where the opposing defense had no fear of the USC offense. Notre Dame knew with a 4-man rush, sometimes bringing a fifth, but with 5 guys, they could put the amount of pressure on Caleb Williams that they would need to for the game. And they could do some give some different looks in the secondary, but play kind of any sort of deep zone that they wanted, take away passing lanes, and just dominate the game and push USC around. And that's the USC offense. And that was striking, because we've seen the offensive line struggle, but you always felt like, well, they're going to hit a play. They're going to get something. A wide receiver is going to get loose. They're going to be able to do something. And this was with Zachariah Branch on the field, and you saw his spark occasionally, even though a lot of that came on special teams. But I think that's what stood out to me. When we're sitting here talking about this team, you got to score 40 points a game. The offense is going to be okay, and you'll see what you can get from the defense. To have something where, again, this is a good Notre Dame defense. This is not an elite top 5 defense in college football this year. This is the best defense that USC's played. They're probably going to see a few more that are in this area of Notre Dame's defense. It was striking to see how confident Notre Dame, and really from the first play. I mean, it was a USC mistake that led to the first interception, but Notre Dame clearly was confident in their plan, and their plan was not much. It was, don't do anything nuts, stay in your rush lanes, and we can play with USC. And USC really let them do that, whether it was not able to make adjustments, not able to help the offensive line, not able to just man up and push somebody out of the way. There were no answers from the USC offense. And the defense was fun, right? The defense, they had their typical, breakdown where you give up a big play for a touchdown, and it's tough for them because that helped provide some of that margin that meant you couldn't get back into it. But you don't have a whole lot negative to say about the defense in this, and you were waiting for the defense to play like that so you could say, okay, now both sides are playing pretty well. And for the offense to just kind of fall apart like that was really surprising. But it also, now you've got kind of this streak of that happening where you got the Utah defense up next, and they're going to be just as confident as this Notre Dame defense was against this USC offense, and especially this USC offensive line, the way it's playing right now, and the seeming just kind of lack of, I don't want to call it passion, but just successful aggression, I guess. Just they cannot go out and push people out of the way and get tough yards and do the stuff that you need to be able to do when your quarterback kind of starts the game struggling and maybe forcing some things, and you just were never able to do anything to be able to calm him down and give him something to work with up front. And that's what came out to me, is Notre Dame threw every single punch in this game for the entire game. I mean, the way USC, even the way they finished, right, in a blowout where you weren't going to win, just kind of disappointing kind of effort and mentality and temperament throughout in this one.
I'm thankful they took a knee, because they could have put up that 55 points if they wanted to.
Good point. Chris, you were in the stands. You are our on the spot reporter in the stands. What was it like, and what was your impressions of the game?
Well, I didn't enjoy it. It was a bad experience, and I've had now a string of bad experiences in South Bend after starting off, I think 5-0, if I'm not mistaken. So coming into this week, everybody was worried about Notre Dame's running game. I wasn't. One of the few things I've been right about recently, and there haven't been very many with this team, because I've been surprised by a lot of what we've seen. But one of the things that I was convinced of is that USC was going to be able to slow down Notre Dame's running game, because the problems with USC's run defense are not personnel related. USC has good enough players to stop the run. USC is not committed to stopping the run. They don't scheme in a way to stop the run. They scheme so that they can disguise coverage. They can disguise who's rushing the quarterback, and stopping the run is secondary. But last year against Notre Dame, they focused on stopping the run, and they did. This year, again, they took the run seriously, and they slowed down a pretty good back. I mean, it's not like they dominated the Notre Dame running game, but they did. They played well enough, and I thought they would. Unfortunately, there was a meltdown everywhere else. Look, we know that the O-line was a disaster this week. I think everybody understands that. Caleb was under pressure constantly, and really for one of the first times, he did not handle it well. I did not expect a first half Caleb Williams meltdown, right? I mean, you want to talk about what was the difference in the game? Well, if you throw 3 picks and 2 of them get run back to, 1 to the 2, 1 to the 12, you're probably going to be in a big hole at the half, right? I mean, of course. So what happened? The offensive line played horribly, and Caleb Williams played like a quarterback that was under pressure instead of playing like Superman. That's what happened. I mean, I've never seen a team score 48 points and have 251 yards of total offense. That's nuts. But if you're 5-0 in the negative in the turnover margin, and you give up a kick return, you're probably going to get blasted, right? That's what happened. Obviously, there were all kinds of devastating penalties. I mean, how many times was USC starting at their own 10-yard line because of a holding penalty in special teams? You had a tying touchdown called back because of a holding call. I mean, those penalties are terrible. And you had critical breakdowns every time USC tried to crawl back in the game, and they had some opportunities, right? I mean, you get back to 24-13 after that start. It's 24-13, and USC had stopped Notre Dame on their first 2 possessions of the second half. You look at it saying, if the offense can just do something here, we're going to be all right. And the offense started to move the ball. They put a touchdown on the board. You think, okay, we're going to be all right. And then you give up the long pass. And the long pass is not Jalen Smith's fault. It's not. It's Alex Grinch's fault. And it happens every week. And every week I come in here and complain about it. And I'm going to keep complaining about it every week until Alex Grinch stops doing it, or until we have a new defensive coordinator. Chris Tyree is Notre Dame's best receiver. He's a really good football player. Jalen Smith on Chris Tyree without deep help and rushing 4 guys is a recipe for disaster. It's obvious to me. It was obvious to Notre Dame's offensive coordinator. It was obvious to Chris Tyree. It was probably obvious to Jalen Smith. The only person it's not obvious to is Alex Grinch, who insists on doing this, despite the fact I can remember just off the top of my head 4 times that USC has given up long, devastating touchdowns in the last 8 games because he chose to put a safety or a nickel on the slot guy in those circumstances. I'm not even watching all the film and writing it down. I remember 4 in the last 8 games off the top of my head, including a touchdown that cost us the Cotton Bowl, including one that starts Colorado's comeback. I mean, I don't understand what he's doing. He obviously has something he's trying to accomplish, and he thinks it helps to have 2 guys sort of covering grass, rushing 4, not getting any pressure, and putting a guy in an impossible coverage situation. He thinks that's a good idea. He's committed to it. He does it every week. He'll do it again against Utah, and Utah will score a touchdown on it. Washington will probably score 3 touchdowns when he does that. I don't know what to say about it, people. I don't get it. At least this week he decided to stop the run, and he largely did until they got down into their goal line offense, when Notre Dame has 2 tight ends and 3 running backs and no wideouts, and USC still in their nickel personnel. I mean, I don't have words to describe what I think about that. Not words that can be played on a family show. I don't get it. Here's the thing, though. Oh, one other thing. The kickoff return touchdown, right? Again, they get to 11 points. Again, the offense has started to come to life, and then you have that. Now, there are a couple of things I don't like about it. The kick placement was awful. I don't know why we can't just kick it in the end zone. I mean, we need to kick it in the end zone. We don't. Fine. But if you're not going to kick it in the end zone, you can't kick it in the middle of the field. You cannot. That's what happened. Bad. Number 2, we have some wide receivers running down on kick coverage, including one that I think should have made that tackle and didn't come close. USC's defensive backs have hard enough time tackling. I don't know why we think the wide receivers are going to do it. I would have different personnel on that unit. Fine. And then the last thing I'd say is, if you're the safety on the kickoff team, if you haven't played football, you haven't been on the kickoff team, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But there's usually 2 guys that are assigned to sort of be the safety. If things break down, they're there to make the tackle, right? And USC has that, of course. If you're that safety, you cannot be 15 yards behind the rest of the guys. You need to be behind them, but you have to be close, because if you're that far back, then once the tackle is missed and he breaks through the hole, then it's just you, a return man. The return men are always skilled. That's why they're there. And just open space. And you're trying to make an open field tackle against a really good athlete, and 9 times out of 10 you won't do it. That safety guy has to be essentially in the hole. He was too far back in a position where he was never going to make the play. They have to correct things like that. I've done that position before. I know what you're supposed to do. It ain't that. They have to correct this stuff. And I know we don't have a special teams coach because you need 2 wide receiver coaches, but somebody has to actually deal with a problem like that. Because when you crawl back into a game and you're down 11 and you have Caleb Williams and you started to move the ball, you have a chance to win. You can't do that. You can't. All right, so that's what I think about that game. Now, here's the thing. Everybody looks at this and says, USC is dead. They're going to lose 5 games. I'm not sure that's true. I actually look at this game and say, USC should win 3 of the next 5. And the 2 of them are just going to have to get lucky in one of them, right? They're just going to have to get lucky in one of those 2 games. We can talk about that later. But I think there's some things they can do. I'll talk about it when we get to Utah, because I think Utah is similar to Notre Dame. Maybe a little better defensively and a whole lot worse at quarterback, but they're similar teams. And I think there's some things we can do. My fundamental problem is that Lincoln Riley has spent much of the first half of this season thinking that he doesn't have a problem, or at least telling the public that. Maybe he knew better. But when you listen to his public statements, it's all, well, I mean, we're scoring a lot of points. Yeah, I know, coach, but you played terrible offense for the last 3 weeks. Well, scoring 50 points a game. Okay. Lincoln Riley understands at this point he's got a problem. He didn't go into that Notre Dame game acting like he had a problem, and there's some things he needs to do to adjust. Because right now, USC has the best football player in college football at the quarterback position. They have an offensive genius running their football team, and that offense was absolute garbage for most of the last 3 games. There's some things he's going to have to fix. And if he's been thinking that he can keep doing the same thing and it's going to be all right, I think he just discovered it's not going to be all right. If you put that on the field against Utah, you're going to get punched in the face again. But we'll talk about that when we get to Utah. I've talked too much.
All right. Well, I think the whole thing to me, when I look at backwards, is you didn't start off going on a walkthrough on Friday to see Notre Dame, to go in that stadium. Yeah, I know there's nobody there. There's no pressure. Just to take a look at it and kind of get a better sense of feel. Did that lose the game? No. But it did. That when you start talking about dotting I's and crossing T's, that's like, to me, coaching playbook 101. Anytime, no matter what sport it is, you always want to, when you're playing away, get a chance to get a little familiar with the environment, right? So the worst possible thing that could have happened, the worst possible thing, was the first interception by Caleb Williams. And I think, Chris, you probably had even a better spot in it, being in the stands, than we had in the press box, because it's a lot quieter there. But that set Notre Dame fans off. That was like the worst possible thing that could happen. All the times I've been to Notre Dame, when Notre Dame gets off early against USC, it all came crashing back. It's very difficult to try to regain your composure. If SC could have managed to get through the first quarter and kind of loosen up a little bit, but they had no slack. They had no chance to do it. Caleb, I think, got rattled. Just looking at him fundamentally, falling backwards, throwing off his back foot, overthrowing McCree over the middle early on. I mean, it was just going crazy. And I'm sure the Notre Dame fans, if you're in the stands, it was bedlam. It was bedlam. Because when you can hear it in the press box, that's not a good sign if you're the opposing team. I look at the offensive line. They're having problems. We know that, but here's a big problem. The defense had no sacks, and I thought the defense actually played well. So kudos to those guys. Even if you're watching, you did a good job, considering you had to defend a short field, right? Considering all the critics that have happened in the past, you came to play. You did a good job for what you had to do. But if you turn it over, Caleb Williams got sacked 6 times, according to the stat book. You know what? Each one of those shots takes a toll on a quarterback. And I think Caleb Williams, the last couple of games, has taken a lot of shots. In fact, one of the other games, he said that was the worst shot he's taken in his career. And you start to wonder whether he's going to get happy feet. I can guarantee you, against Utah, against Oregon, maybe Washington, UCLA has a good defense. They can't let him take shots like that. Sooner or later, one of them is going to be a kill shot, and he's going to be out for his own survival. I never thought USC was in the game. They did not seem to me that Notre Dame was on a mission. They were going, Al Golden had a great defensive plan against Caleb Williams. I heard his comments on the post game. I heard some of the players of Notre Dame, if Caleb does this, we got to do this. They didn't want it, in their words, they didn't want to turn it into last year's playground game in the Coliseum when Caleb, according to Chris Fowler on ESPN, was a joystick. And they did pretty much what they were on a mission. They accomplished their mission. They wanted to win this game. I think SC wanted to win the game, but they were taken out of the game way too early. It snowballed, and this is what happens at Notre Dame Stadium. It's really a bad place to play when that crowd is into it and they're feeling the four horsemen and everybody else that comes out of the sky. So it's a learning experience. Maybe next time SC will do a walkthrough in a stadium like that. I mean, even Lincoln Riley said he had never been to Notre Dame's campus, but he had watched Rudy 5,000 times, which was an experience, I'm sure. All right, this is going to transition into, I think, an important question. It's certainly not a personal question, but it's an observation that I think deserves some scrutiny. Panel, Lincoln Riley has taken a professional image hit with the loss to Notre Dame. Has he fallen from grace locally and nationally? Is he under pressure? Obviously, he's not going to get fired. We all know that, right? But did this game take a toll on his perception of being the coach that he, should we say, was in the upper echelon? So what do you think, Mark? Did he take a hit?
Yeah, I think there's a chink in the armor. But you know what? Every coach has a chink in their armor. The thing with Lincoln Riley is he is so far ahead of the curve where he is in his career in relation to his age. I mean, he's 40 years old, and he's already been the head of 2 blue blood programs. And let's be honest, he's been successful at both programs, even though he hasn't gotten to the promised land. He got Oklahoma close, but now people are using their hindsight and saying, well, he got close when he was using Bob Stoops players. When he had to start recruiting his own players, that's when Oklahoma started to kind of decline a little bit, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. We're seeing that at USC. He came over and he had to clean up a big mess. I mean, let's be honest. He took a 4-8 team and turned him into 11-1. But he's doing that with transfer portal players. The recruiting hasn't carried over to USC yet. And recruiting at USC is really easy when you're winning. He won last year, but it hasn't made that transition to the recruiting side of the ball. So the hit to his national perception is Lincoln Riley is an offensive guy. He doesn't care about defense. And as long as he outscores everybody, everything is fine. Well, you now have national reporters saying, maybe we should start peeling back the layers a little bit. I mean, ESPN did the Heather Dinich and Adam Rittenberg, we'll call it their own little mini roundtable, where they had personal anecdotes from, coaches who have been analyzing USC, who have played against USC. And it makes you wonder, is Lincoln Riley reading his own press clippings? He's talked about how he admires the NFL lifestyle and he wants to retire by the time he's 50. So these are the types of things now that, all right, let's find out what Lincoln Riley's weaknesses are. And they're starting to put these things out there. It's interesting. How much of a hit will he endure if USC comes out and takes care of business against Utah? Okay, he can say, hey, we had a lot of stuff to fix. We fixed it. Look what we did. But we know what happens a week after that. So I think right now people are they're a little skeptical. They're like, who is Lincoln Riley? What is his team's identity? I asked him specifically about the offense. That's starting to, raise its head. I don't know what the team's offensive identity is unless Caleb Williams can carry them across the finish line. We know what they are defensively. It's Alex Grinch's scheme, and you hope for perfection so they can execute. Yeah, I think he has taken a hit. Is it something that USC fans and USC should be concerned about? Probably not. But that his comment about, having a better appreciation for life and liking the NFL lifestyle because you don't have to recruit when the season's over. I don't know if they're warning signs or red flags, but did you hear that type of thing? So yeah, I think there was a perception challenge right now for Lincoln Riley that he needs to clear up.
Eric?
Yeah, those comments, he doesn't have control, I would assume, over when that comes out. That was wild timing for that to come out there and them to play this game. That's like the most unfortunate back-to-back thing that could have happened. Because, yeah, the thought was at that time when that comes out, why is he talking about this right now and not doing a Notre Dame walkthrough, right? I mean, it's not like he gave the interview during this week, but that's kind of how that timing plays out. Look, people have to fill so much time during the week that you want to overreact to every single thing. Yeah, this gives national media more ammunition to throw at Lincoln Riley. He's going to be graded on how the season goes. You're going to have a lot. You lost the turnover battle 5-0 in a game. The idea that a coach is single-handedly responsible for that, and he can't coach offense or he can't coach defense, like that's overreaction, like to the highest magnitude. I think we're going to get a sense, right? We're going to get a sense after the next 5 games, of where this program is. I think ultimately the fact that they won a lot of those games last year and that the schedule was as easy, I think, last year, and they did win 11 games after 4 games, really kind of short-circuited everyone's understanding of the rebuild that he had in front of him when he got to USC. This was always, I think, a multi-year thing. You had your kind of steroid with Caleb Williams being here, and you got to get a lot better quicker than any other coach who has ever taken over a program in the state that USC was. So where I think the issue comes in is if you have this team that gets bullied more and more and more, that's when I think that the narrative really starts to build of you had 2 off seasons to kind of put this in, and it sure looks like you can't play with some of these teams. Is it going to be an overreaction if they come out and beat a Utah team that doesn't seem to have a ton on offense, and if they shut that running game down and they beat Utah, does everyone jump in and say, oh, never mind, we were wrong, Lincoln Riley's a great coach? I just think the overreaction week to week, you go to South Bend, you have those early turnovers. That's a tough game. That's a tough game for any coach to win. So the idea that things have changed significantly, I think we know this is a program with kind of some issues. We knew that they might not be great. I think again, I don't want to undersell the surprise of the offensive line. I think we all thought the offensive line would be better this year, and especially game to game as it went along, than it is right now. But Lincoln Riley doesn't have a history of not paying attention to the offensive line. Like he puts together offensive lines throughout his career. So again, a game like that, you look back at Oregon State, right? That offense was not good against Oregon State. USC won that turnover battle 4-0, and nobody at the end of that was going, oh, throw in the towel. This guy can't coach. So I think that, again, the next games for me, how you rebound, that's more of a statement about where your program is and the direction that it's heading than this one game and that performance.
Chris Arledge.
You're on mute.
Chris.
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
All right. He's getting some bad press right now. That happens all the time, right? You lose a football game, and you look bad for a couple of weeks, and you start to hear that. I don't think that's a huge deal right now. Here's the thing. I think Lincoln Riley is a very good offensive football coach. The question is how flexible he's going to be. The difference between the really good coaches and the great coaches, or the great coaches recognize very quickly when they've got a problem and they adjust. And some coaches are too stubborn to do it. I don't know what camp Lincoln Riley falls into on that. I guess we're going to find out. Erik mentioned that we all thought the offensive line was going to be better. It's not just the 4 of us. Lincoln Riley thought that offensive line was going to be better. And he actually thought that offensive line was going to be able to handle Notre Dame. He did, because he wouldn't have called the game like that otherwise. He thought they would be able to handle Notre Dame. Now I think he looks at it and he realizes that they couldn't handle Notre Dame. They're not going to be able to handle Utah, probably not going to be able to handle UCLA, probably not going to be able to handle Oregon. Washington's a different story. Washington doesn't rush the passer, which is why USC has a puncher's chance in that one. But Lincoln Riley is going to have to make some adjustments. He does strike me as somebody who's stubborn, but most of the good coaches are, right? The smart coaches, because they know so much and they develop these systems and the systems are successful. And so they figure that if the guys will just do what I'm telling them to do, we'll be all right. And in Lincoln Riley's history, that's been the case most of the time, right? And it's not like he's had down years where the offense couldn't score points. That doesn't happen, right? In his lousy year, his last year at Oklahoma, they averaged, I think, 39 points a game. He can score points. The question is if he's going to be flexible. Is he going to recognize that he's going to have to make some adjustments with the offensive line he has? Is he eventually going to recognize that he has to make some adjustments with the defensive scheme that they're using? If he doesn't do that, he'll still win a lot of games, but he'll never be what USC fans hoped he would be, and he'll never be what he wants to be. But it's too early to know that. In any event, we'll see. But, just because you're getting some bad press, I mean, Nick Saban was getting some bad press a few weeks ago, too, because nobody could figure out why he didn't have a quarterback. Didn't you know this was going to happen? You don't have a quarterback. What's going on? That's what happens when you make $12 million a year and your work product is on TV every week. When you have a couple bad weeks, people are going to say bad things. Lincoln Riley will be fine. The question is whether fine means an elite coach that wins national titles or a guy that wins 10 or 11 games because he's really good with quarterbacks. I don't know the answer to that yet. I don't think anybody does.
All right. Well, I guess I'm the last one in the order here. I have a lot of questions about Lincoln Riley. Do I think he's a great coach? I think he's a really good coach. I don't know great. I don't know what at USC. I know what great means. It means John McKay. It means John Robinson the first time around and Pete Carroll. That is the standard. So we all know what great looks like. We also question, and I think all of you made some really good points about flexibility. But you know what? I guess, I look at the air raid offense. I know that, Cliff Kingsbury's there. They're all disciples of Mike Leach. Mike Leach was a fine innovator, but is that going to win you the national championship? I don't think so personally. That's just my opinion. Is it going to win the Pac-12? Could, but it hasn't yet to my knowledge. But he was so anointed early that he was far beyond, I think Mark brought up a good point. He's only 40 years old, but, he's got job security. The contract is huge. Well, when you have a big contract, people expect big production. SC doesn't need a fine coach. They need a great coach. And where the biggest hit to me with Riley is on the recruiting path. Now, what do I mean by that? He's going to get quarterbacks. We all know that. He's already got what some say is the best quarterback in the class of 225 to 26. We know he's going to have great wide receivers, generally speaking. Offensive linemen, I have concern on the recruiting there. For whatever reason, I have concern. Whether it's the position coach, I hope not. I don't think so. I listened to him talk. Hanson, he seems to really know what he's talking about. But recruiting is the lifeline of USC football. I don't agree with, maybe it's a philosophy, necessity, but if you're going to continue with the transfer portal, you're not going to get it done. The transfer portal is not the answer. The answer is getting high school talent to come and develop them into frontline players. That's just my opinion. The idea that, okay, we'll just go to the transfer portal. Why are guys transferring in the first place? Okay. What is the issue where they're coming from? You can't rely on that. Here's a problem. Washington obviously is having a fantastic year. Oregon is having a really good year. They played a great game. And how does that play to recruits? Where does that leave USC? SC has not done well in recruiting, in my opinion. when it comes to battling Oregon. And Washington was kind of a non-player, and if they keep what they're doing up, they're going to get their share, and they're both going into the Big Ten. I'm worried about what's going to happen recruiting-wise going to the Big Ten. Look, Notre Dame had 5 turnovers against Louisville. They bounced back against USC. My hope is that USC will do the same thing to Utah that Notre Dame did to USC. I think they have a puncher's chance against Washington, but all these wins and losses are so magnified on television. And Lincoln Riley is such a figure that people are having to question, is he just a good offensive coordinator, great offensive coordinator, doesn't care about defense? All of it presents a perception. The timing of the thing about, I want to quit when I'm 50, so to speak, and, they don't have to recruit in the NFL. Maybe Eric's right. It was just a bad case of timing, but it's not a good look. I'm sorry. It's not a good look. So how do you cure it all? Easy. You got to go out and win games. All right. Fans, you ever been caught in a last-minute event ticket frenzy? The stress and uncertainty, it's crunch time. You don't need it. But guess what? There's a game-changing solution. It's called Game Time. Imagine this, effortless ticket buying for all your favorite sports, music, comedy, theater events. No more frantic searches. Game Time is your ultimate ticket buddy. That sounds good to me. Want perks? Well, how about incredible deals on last-minute tickets and a rock-solid best price guarantee? Say goodbye to ticket anxiety and hello to the sheer joy of being in the moment. The Trojans game this Saturday, October 21st, against defending Pac-12 champions, the Utah Utes, has some great deals for this big Pac-12 game. So check out Game Time tickets after or listening to today's Inside the Trojans Huddle. Aside from USC tickets, you can also head to Game Time for Rams, Chargers, Lakers, Clippers, tickets to all your favorite LA teams. And don't forget those rock concerts as well. Flash deals, easy access, seat viewing, images, unbeatable price guarantee, event protection. Game Time has it all from sports to rock concerts. So here's the deal. Head to gametime.co. That's gametime.co. That's co, not .com. And download the app, create an account, use code Trojans for $20 off your first purchase. Ready to dive in? As for buying tickets, it's easy as tapping on your phone. Tickets are sent to your phone. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Trojans for $20 off. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code Trojans for $20 off on your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. We move to the second quarter with a preview of number 14 Utah Utes, who are 2-1 in the Pac-12, 5-1 overall. On Saturday, the Utes whipped Cal 34-14 and still managed to win in spite of the absence of an all-star quarterback in Cam Rising, who's been out the entire season while recovering from a serious knee injury that he suffered in last season's Rose Bowl game. Fox will nationally televise the USC-Utah game from the Coliseum, which kicks off at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Offensively, Utah figures to be led by junior quarterback Bryson Barnes, who threw for 128 yards and ran for 50 more. It was also Barnes' third start of the season after getting benched against Baylor in week 2. Sophomore running back Sione Vaca ran for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. Fellow sophomore Jaquinton Jackson rushed for 94 yards in the Cal victory. Defensively, the Utes are a typical rough, tough, disciplined Kyle Whittingham defense, which the coach says this might just be one of his best in his long tenure at Utah. Defensive lineman Junior Tafuna, safety Cole Bishop lead the way. And by the way, Cole Bishop will probably not play in the first half against USC because of a targeting penalty in the second half last week. Utah is currently averaging 21.67 points per game on offense, while allowing 12.17 points per game on defense. Okay, panel, the Trojans opened a 5.5-point favorite over Utah. Do you agree, disagree? Are you surprised at those odds, Chris?
I think that's about right. Utah poses some problems for USC, and they could win the game. But when Kyle Whittingham says that this might be the best defense he's had, well, it better be, because it's about the worst offense I've seen in the Pac-12 in 100 years. And they are terrible offensively. They're tied for 1/10 in the country at 21.7 points per game, which, by the way, is 0.8 points ahead of Iowa. who is notorious for having horrific offenses every single year. Utah cannot throw the football. They run it pretty well. They're not overwhelming, but they run it pretty well. Utah is the opposite of what USC was last year, which is they're great on one side of the ball and pretty terrible on the other side. So this is a game USC should win, and I think USC will win it. I'm not going to say how yet because I think that comes up in the next question, but I'm not troubled by that point spread at all. I think USC should be favored. I think that 5.5 is pretty reasonable.
Mark?
Yeah, that point spread is another one of those. Well, USC's at home. They already get 3 points for having home field advantage. And the odds makers saying, we're going to give you an extra 2.5 points. They're saying they're not happy with USC's offense. And USC's offense had zero issue with Utah's defense last year in either game until, in the championship game, obviously we knew what happened with Caleb Williams. So I can't imagine that this year's defense at Utah is that much better than last year's. I mean, there wasn't that much of a turnover, and they didn't add that many players that would make it that significantly better. So I said this to, going to the Notre Dame game, that 2.5 point spread, someone was going to get blown out. And I kind of get the feeling the same thing's going to happen with this game. Only USC will be blowing out Utah. As Chris said, they're terrible on offense. And if USC's defense if they can't make Utah throw the ball, it literally say, you are going to throw the ball, and we will take our chances losing the game that way. I don't know how USC is going to defend these guys because their passing game Utah's passing game is terrible. So yeah, that point spread tells me that USC should blow them out. We'll see what happens though.
Erik, are they going to blow them out?
I don't know, but the money seems to. It's already pushed to -7 USC, and it's climbed like every minute. It seems like since that opened up. I am very glad that Utah threw Sione Vaki at running back a week before USC, because if they had done that for the first time against USC, he would have run for 250 yards against the USC defense. USC being able to see that and how they want to use him, I think, is a huge advantage because he was so significant for their offense against Cal. And Cal was clearly not ready for it. And Cal typically will throw a pretty good defense out there, but Utah put up points for the first time all season in that game and really kind of relying on him and that running game. So USC should know what the plan is. Utah is going to have plenty of gadgets and all that. I think you can look at it a little bit like that Arizona State game, what they brought in when they didn't have their starting quarterback. I don't think there's any sense at this point that Cameron Rising is going to play. And oh, by the way, Utah's been without tight end Brant Kuithe all season too, and that's a huge hit for them also. The fact that today everyone sort of started shifting into, could they redshirt and come back next year? That kind of gives you a sense of where they are in their projected comeback, even though like a day after he tore his ACL, the talk was, he could play against Florida in the season opener. Anyway, it's going to come down to what USC's tackles and what their offensive line can do against the Utah defensive ends. Jonah Ellis is good and great and has been an absolute terror for everybody he has gone against this year. A couple sacks and forced fumbles, and the USC's offense, it kind of doesn't matter, right? Like that's something. And again, kind of what Chris talked about earlier, if Lincoln Riley doesn't have a plan for that, if he doesn't have a plan for the edges and the tackles and everything that goes into that, then I think you can start questioning what are we doing here offensively. So the way both those games played out last week, with Utah having to show a little bit of that offense and USC getting some real answers along its offensive line against a good defensive line, I think both those things should help USC. And oh, by the way, it's at the Coliseum, where really good Utah teams do not typically play well, or at least come away with wins. So I think there's a lot that shifts towards USC, but don't get it wrong. USC has got to answer the questions. They don't get to win by showing up. This Utah team is going to make them earn it physically on both sides of the ball up front. If USC isn't ready for it and thinks they just get to win by showing up, that Utah is going to make it a long day, because they have not given up points this year. I think 21 points one time, and everybody else 14 or less. So you are going to have to move the ball. You're going to have to play physically. They're going to test the USC running game in every way. But I think, and it sounds crazy because of how last week went, USC's not going to lose the turnover battle 5-0. If it does, then yeah, Utah wins. Every kind of evening out there. Again, I think you're seeing why things start shifting USC's way in this.
Real quick, Brian Barnes is no relation to John Barnes, correct?
No,
Okay.
not to my knowledge.
And there's no real sense that he's absolutely the starter, right? They've kind of picked and choose where they go with quarterback with Rising out. You'd assume he gets it because he got it last week too. But somehow Utah's offense may have more questions than USC's team right now. But they are going to throw a couple really good backs at USC, and Jaquindon Jackson has run over USC defenders not too long ago.
And he can throw the ball too on occasion.
I'm intrigued by 5.5 points. Part of me says there's no way Caleb Williams isn't going to come out on fire against Utah. And the other part of me says there's no way that Utah, knowing what they did to SC physically last year, isn't going to come out on fire. And they're going to look at that Notre Dame game and we go, if we get to him early and often and punish him, he's going to go in the tank. I'm not saying he is going to go in the tank, but I think that would be their feeling, that they're going to get enough shots. It's a bad matchup between a mediocre at best offensive line by USC and a very physical front by Utah. I can tell you 9 times out of 10 who wins that battle. But again, Caleb could come out, be on fire. I mean, Lincoln Riley has to be on the top of his game in terms of calling offensive plays. He's got to. I think personally, I've said this before, I don't retract it. I think Kyle Whittingham's the best coach in the conference, considering, if Utah had Cam Rising, which they don't, but if they did, I think that they would be just as good as any team in the conference this year. But they don't. But I think that Whittingham has done a remarkable job considering winning games as ugly as they won them. And I've watched him. He definitely knows how to set a game plan. He's got great offense and defensive coordinators. They won't lose because they didn't scheme right or they didn't line up right. I mean, it's going to be part of the players. But if it's going to be more than a 5.5 point difference, USC is going to take it to them. But if it's less than that, USC is going to have their hands full. And Utah's going to play it quarter by quarter, which kind of transitions to the next question. What will you be looking for from the USC offense, defense, and special teams against the Utes? And what will be the key to the game, Chris?
So first a comment. I think Kyle Whittingham is a fantastic football coach, but I've seen him lose games because of his scheme. I've seen it. We've all seen it, right? Where USC had 3 NFL wide receivers and he thought, I'll just man up all game against a third-team quarterback and just threw it for grabs, play after play after play. So, let's not go crazy with this guy's he doesn't have a decided schematic advantage the way Charlie Weiss did. Let's start with USC's defense, because you can make an argument that Utah is the worst passing team in the country. They're awful throwing the football. And you'd say, okay, but they're a really good running team. They're not a really good running team. They're ranked 46 in the nation in rushing, and they average less than 4 yards a carry. They are not a good running team. They're a crappy running team. They are a bad offense. They are fundamentally terrible offensively. So what do you do if you're USC? First of all, you stop the run. Don't get clever. Don't try to disguise your coverages. Don't do that stupid stuff, Alex. Get enough bodies in the box and tell your guys, do not let them run the football. We couldn't do that last year because Rising could beat you. I mean, we could have done it. We chose not to. But Rising could beat you. These quarterbacks can't beat you. So you do two things. One is you put enough guys in the box. And two, you never, ever, ever man up without deep help. Because if Utah's passing game is going to hurt you, they're going to hurt you because they throw the ball over your head and score on a 60-yard play. They're not going to drive the ball down the field Tom Brady style by throwing 5-yard outs and slants. They're not. Don't do that, Alex. I'm telling you, don't do it. You're going to frustrate me. I'm going to be in the stands. I will run down onto the field and choke you. Okay, USC offensively, it's time for Lincoln Riley to admit that his offensive line cannot do what he wants them to do. And that means you're going to have a lot more misdirection. You're going to have to have a lot more designed rollouts. You're going to have to have screens and draws. You're going to have to do some things to protect your offensive line. He needs to realize that. I suspect he does after watching what he watched Saturday. So I think USC will probably do some of that. The second thing they have to do actually involves Caleb Williams. And last week, probably a lot of you saw it, ESPN had an article on Caleb Williams and how he is the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning. And there was one scout that mentioned one thing. He said, look, one thing we haven't seen him do is get the ball out on time, right? If you watch the great Patriots teams with Tom Brady, that's all they ever did. It's get the ball, get it out of your hands, put it in the right spot to the right guy. And if you have to complete 10 passes to get down the field and score, you do that, and you do it consistently. Caleb Williams has the talent to do that, but I don't think he has the will. And so he will give up open underneath routes to hold onto the ball forever because he wants to strike deep. Why does he do that? Because he's so great at it, right? I would do that too if I were him, because he has a history of running around like something you do at recess in the 3rd grade and then hitting people downfield and making all kinds of crazy throws that nobody in the world can make except for him and Patrick Mahomes. I get why he does it. But Caleb Williams, both for the benefit of USC with this lousy offensive line and frankly for his future as a franchise quarterback, is going to have to learn to get the ball out of his hands, get it on time, and throw it into small windows. He can do it, but he's going to have to do it. He refused to do it against Notre Dame, and it cost USC dearly. If he doesn't do it against Utah, it will cost USC dearly. They may still win the game 7-3, but if Lincoln Riley will call plays to protect his offensive line, and if Caleb Williams is willing to play within the offense, get the ball out on time, and not insist on getting a 75-yard touchdown every time he drops back, then USC will blow out Utah. But if USC doesn't do that, if they come out with a similar game plan and similar quarterback play as they did last Saturday, then they're going to be in a dogfight against Utah. And Utah is pretty good, as you pointed out, Greg, in those situations. And if this is a 3-point game in the 4th quarter, I do not feel good about the outcome.
Mark?
Yeah, whomever's going to the game with Chris, you are the designated get Arledge back guy. Make sure he doesn't.
Nobody can stop me, Mark. Nobody.
Look, I think at this point, all we're looking for is to see the team progress at each unit from week to week. So with the offense, if you want to start with the offensive line, and I think it's probably a really good place to start. I don't think they're terrible. I think they're playing terribly. I know I'm probably playing a game of semantics here, but they can fix their issues. But I think it's a mindset. For instance, when you have 4th and 1, your offensive lineman's mindset should be, I'm going to go punch that dude in the mouth and we're going to get a yard. But I can't do that with my quarterback lined up in shotgun. I need him under the center's ass, and I need another 500 pounds of manhood behind him, pushing him across the line of scrimmage, because it's legal now. In all 50 states, you can do this. So I want to see the offense actually have an identity. Chris, you brought up, Caleb holding on the ball too long. He does do that on occasion because he wants to, look good with those deep strikes. But other times it's because the wide receivers aren't getting open. So we need to see the offense have a little bit more creativity than they've been showing these last 3 or 4 weeks. Defensively, I think I've already said it. Stop the run, make Utah's prolific passing offense, throw the ball deeper than 5-6 yards of play. And then again, on special teams, what I'm looking for is for Zachariah Branch to make plays, to cover up for any of the weaknesses that we're seeing that are kind of, raising its head across, all 3 spectrums right now with offense, defense, special teams. From Lincoln Riley, I want to see better clock management, little sense of urgency, even at the beginning of the game. There's no reason why you have an offense that's prolific as it is, that can score points, that you need to run your own play clock down to 3, 4, 5 seconds before you snap the ball, if not lower than that. That's something that has to stop because you're actually giving the defense an advantage. They're looking up at the play clock. They can see when it's at 3 or 2. Now they can time their snap. These little things make a difference. So if these things are all fixable, that Lincoln Riley alluded to after the game against Notre Dame and weeks previous, these are the little things that I need to see so the offense can work. Otherwise, Kyle Whittingham, he knows his defense can scheme enough to get USC's offense off the field. If USC scores like they're capable of, like they did last year against Utah, that forces Utah to have to adjust their game plan. Right now, Lincoln Riley he's being asked to adjust his game plan because the other teams are ready for USC. USC is not ready for the other team.
Eric?
Yeah, I think that last point is interesting. There's been a lot of, they didn't do anything we weren't expecting. And so then what you take from that is you were just absolutely outplayed in all facets, which if you're USC, that can't be it, right? That can't be the answer. So I think for this game, I mean, what you're looking for is a win, right? Whatever it looks like, you got to get right. You got to get right. You got to win and take a step forward there. I know Utah may be down its 2 best offensive players by far, but this was a game coming in where it was Utah's going to bring a really good defense and they're going to be a challenge. And it's part of that run, right, at the end of the season. So you got to tally wins. I think specifically it goes to what everyone has kind of said. It's just to get out of your own way with how sloppy things have been, right? 9 penalties against Notre Dame. And there's a couple in there where, but overall, when it's every week, those are going to get thrown against you, right? When you're that team who Colorado right now is the same way. If it's 50-50, they're throwing a flag on them because you're the team that gets penalized. So USC can't be that in this one. When you've got a 4th and 1, you can't be slow off the ball and not touch a guy who gets into the backfield. That opening interception that Caleb threw, you can't have a defensive end who is almost like by play design allowed to sprint directly at the quarterback. Those things can't happen. These are college players. You're gonna get stuff like that, right? The idea that you're gonna have a perfect game in every aspect of it is an impossibility. But USC lately especially has had so many of those in so many different areas. You can't even point to like one specific thing that's the issue. It's just kind of across the board. And you keep waiting for like, they'll get that figured out. They'll get that figured out. And now you're 7 games in and it's kind of, like we talk about the offensive line. Oh, you want to have them go out there and really physically push Utah around and assert themselves. And it's like, that's kind of it's kind of crazy to hope for that at this point, because they haven't shown the ability to do that now. And I think a lot of it is looking back at last year's offensive line, those guys, and Justin Dietz talked about it a little bit this week when he was talking about this offensive line coming together, that 2022 group had played a lot of football together. And this one still feels like it's kind of figuring its way. And again, you're late in the season now. So you do need to see some different things from the coaches being able to step forward and help this group. And if they need to simplify things or whatever you need to do kind of in football terms to let your offensive line play fast and play confidently against a Utah front that's going to be really good. But I think that's it. The pre-snap penalties on the offensive line, the holding on special teams, those kinds of things at this point in the year, forget the playoff, right? I mean, I know you can still play towards that, but forget the idea of like the end of season goals. Just get it this week, right? Just make steps forward for this week, button up those things that have been problematic for you that shouldn't be. For, again, forget an elite team, a good college football team doesn't do these kinds of things week in and week out. And I think you can have some fixes there. And then defensively, I think you played pretty confidently against the Notre Dame offense. You should be able to turn that up even a little bit against the Utah offense and fly around a little bit. You saw, there's still some errors from Tackett Curtis, but you saw him play a little bit more confidently. Christian Roland-Wallace played really well in that game. You're getting, even without the sacks and without a ton of tackles for loss, you're getting a little bit more from that defense. So can you take a step forward on that side also against Utah? But really, it's just, Marc talked about kind of the play clock and the kind of fidgety offense. And are you really ready? Are you set to go? Are you confident in what you're doing? That's the look from Utah, that even if you make a mistake, because you're going to make a mistake, are you doing it with confidence? Are you going hard? Are you ready to kind of get back into it quickly? And can you avoid sort of spiraling if things start to go against you?
I can tell you, offensive linemen hate to be in that set for as long as they're being asked to set in there. It's uncomfortable, especially if you're the center. There's a certain balance you have, and you get to a certain point where you have to load up. You have to adjust your body and its weight because everything's coming at you.
I think you're right too, Marc, about something else, and that is that when everybody knows that USC is going to get up to the line, they're going to look at the set. He's going to look over at Lincoln Riley. He's now going to start telling everybody else what to do. The defense isn't lining up with the defense they're going to use anyway.
Right.
And that's the crazy thing is they're adjusting at the last second, knowing that USC is going to sit around and do this. If USC would snap the ball occasionally with 24 seconds left on the clock, you might have some defenses that have to get lined up on time. But if you don't do that, if you consistently allow the defense to realize, play clock's on 13, he's gonna get up and talk to his guys until there are 4 seconds left. You allow them to do that to you. And that's just bad football. That needs to be fixed.
And J.D. Bertrand, the Notre Dame linebacker, was asked post-game about a sack that he had or a blitz or a rush or something. And the question, I think, was posed as this kind of like, what did you see? What were you, whatever? And he's like, there was 1 second left on the play clock, so I ran, right? Like they were either going to snap it or it was a penalty, so I ran. And you just can't let a guy have a really successful play because there was no other option. And he just did it that way, right? And I think sometimes you're making the offensive line, like they get set and they're waiting. And then in the 5 seconds of the play call, the late play call coming in and getting adjusted, now they have to react to whatever the new call is, plus then what the defense is doing. And you've got a whole massive thing of trying to adjust in like 4 seconds of real time. And you can see sometimes the offensive line just late start and they can't get to the guy because he's moved and there's a whole lot of thinking and adjusting going on really late in the clock.
And this is the trap that a smart offensive coach can fall into, right? Because Lincoln Riley, he has a system that's been wildly successful. And so he wants to see what they're doing so he can adjust and he can attack their weaknesses. That's all fine. You're going to have to be less stubborn, coach. Get out there and let your guys play, because what you're doing is putting your guys in a bad spot pretty consistently.
The biggest thing he can do to help or to hurt the opponent's defense, stop rotating your wide receivers every play or running a running back in every other play. Don't let them bring in a replacement. That way you don't have the umpire standing over the ball and then giving them an extra 5 seconds just to make sure somebody else doesn't run on the field. I mean, those things will help yourself.
And Notre Dame said that too. Marcus Freeman said at the end of the game, he said, we were very, very conscious of every time they subbed, we subbed. We got a new defensive line run out there. We rotated all game long. I think he said like roll them through or something was like the mantra for the defensive line in that game. They wanted fresh guys on the field every chance they could get to put the best pass rush on the field every chance they could get against that USC offensive line that really felt it from Notre Dame.
And don't forget how much pressure it puts on a defense when the offense is playing fast, right? Yeah. I mean, they changed the rules a little bit to at least allow the defense to sub, but they'll still allow you to snap the ball pretty quickly if you just get up to the line and make a play. And just think back to those Chip Kelly Oregon teams. It was devastating for defenses. They didn't have time to get their breath. They didn't have time to figure out what was going wrong. You get a first down, they're immediately up there again. They're immediately up there again. You do that, you're wearing out your defensive lineman, and you're making it more likely that you're going to get a favorable matchup against a secondary guy where one missed tackle equals a touchdown. USC every once in a while will play fast, but they don't like to. And I think they're hurting themselves.
All right, I'll throw my 2 cents in here, what I'm looking for. I think the key to the game will be the first quarter. If SC comes out and does something they haven't done the last couple of games and gets out to a 14-point lead, you got to like their chances. If Utah gets through that first quarter, either in the lead or even up, it's going to be a ball game, which transitions to me that it's going to get down to physicality. SC's offense against Utah's defense and vice versa. I think it gets down to that. Special teams, I'm looking for Branch, who was really the spark in the game against Notre Dame. He'll be fully back in functional form. He could be the big difference in this game if SC comes out roaring in the first quarter and Branch adds on with a punt or a kickoff return, hopefully more of a punt return than a kickoff return, unless it's the start of the game. Panel, we're going to wrap up the first half and then we'll get really rolling here. As we've been doing for every Pac-12 team that USC plays that will not be on the foreseeable Trojan schedule, do you have any memories or experiences in the modern Utah USC era? You may include any bowl games. Chris, what is your memory going to be for Utah as they depart to the Big 12?
I have 3. One I already mentioned, the Matt Fink game, which was a fun one, and then there are 2 others. One really bad, one really good. The bad one was Pete Carroll's first bowl game, where Utah just curb stomped USC's offense. And Pete Carroll, who was not a particularly stubborn coach, looked at that season and said, we're going to make some changes here. Changed his offensive line coach, made some changes in the offense, and the program really took off after that point. The other one was the Cameron Smith game. 2015, USC had lost 3 of the last 4. Utah was ranked number 3, and the Trojans just gave them a beatdown. And Cameron Smith picking balls off and running it back was a big part of that. Because, hey, what do you know? When you lose the turnover battle badly, you're probably going to lose a game badly too. And that was a day when Utah lost a turnover battle badly.
Mark?
Yeah, Chris actually took 2 of the games. Watching Michael Pittman just go up one-on-one and mossing everybody against Utah's defenders was fun to watch. It was almost as fun to watch as Juju Schuster-Smith taking a Utah defender with one arm and just throwing him to the sideline so he can pick up a few more yards. I mean, that's the type of physicality that you anticipate from a USC squad on both sides of the ball. And Chris, you brought up Pete Carroll's first bowl loss against Utah in that Las Vegas Bowl. You know the other adjustment he made after that game? He did not allow his upperclassmen to travel on their own to a bowl game like he did for that Las Vegas Bowl. And he made sure curfew was everybody was in bed by the time they were supposed to be. That way you don't have players vomiting in the locker room because they're hungover at halftime. That I was there for that for that Las Vegas Bowl, Christmas Day. I remember it distinctly. I was like, what was that? And I was like, oh, I remember why. I remember seeing that player at the blackjack table at 3 a.m.
Eric?
The Cam Smith game is the one for me. I think that the 2011 game was fun too, though, right? That was the first Pac-12 game between USC and Utah. Utah went for a what would have been a game-tying field goal at the last second, and I remember being in the press box, and they told us like an hour after the game what the actual final score was because they couldn't figure out. And again, first USC Utah Pac-12 game, got straight into Pac-12 officiating, couldn't figure out what the score was, if the return, right, the block kick return counted or not, or what the deal was with that. So that one was an interesting one. But watching Cameron Smith intercept those passes, chugging that one back to the end zone, and again a number 3 Utah team coming in and USC doing that to them was fun. Because I can't let a week go by without talking about a loss. Standing on the field in Salt Lake City last year in that regular season game, again, just kind of a heartbreaking end, but that atmosphere, the electricity, the noise, all of that. Those are the college football things that stand out, right? When you have that kind of intense atmosphere, if you can put aside at all the result, that was kind of emotional to be there for that.
Okay, well, I have just a real quick comment on it. I have appreciation of what Utah did when they came into the conference, how they built their program up, how they measured themselves against USC, how they decided they would be as physical or more physical than USC. Whether USC responded to that physicality, I don't think that quite happened. Also, I think that Chris brought up a good point about Kyle Whittingham making a big mistake going man-to-man when SC had the great receivers, but he learned from it. He adjusted from it. The fact that last year they took 2 from USC, I have a great deal of respect on how people build their program and what they build it on. In fact, in so many ways, the Utah program under Whittingham reminds me so much of the physicality of USC teams that I have a great appreciation for it. And it's my hope that SC will become what we know SC should be, and that's a very physical team. They'll have very little choice when they go into the Big Ten. They'll either sink or swim on physicality. All right, with that, friends, reminder, USC football fans, following the conclusion of each and every USC home and away football game, we bring you 5 things, a timely analysis from moderator and WeAreSC editor-in-chief Erik McKinney, along with columnist Marc Kulkin and myself. We answer and discuss 5 important in-depth questions about the just concluded game. Check out 5 things on YouTube and WeAreSC.com after the conclusion of Saturday night's game with Utah from the Coliseum. Okay, halftime. We'll make this one a quick one. So, panel, tailor your responses. Did the Notre Dame weekender live up to your expectations? What was the highlight of the trip? Eric?
No highlight. Losses in South Bend are garbage, and the entire trip is garbage.
Chris?
I hated everything about it.
Mark?
I had some Lou Malnati's deep dish, and I got a new pair of jeans, and I'm going to keep the new pair of jeans story to myself because it's a little personal.
It was personal. My highlight of the trip was to arrive in South Bend, Elkhart, Indiana, 1:00 in the morning on Friday night, and I was exhausted. And I went to the front desk, and they said, "Oh, we're sorry, we canceled your reservation and gave it to somebody else, and we have no rooms available." Which was like, are you kidding me?
I can't believe you let the game happen after that, knowing what was coming at that point. I mean, it's
should have pulled the fire alarm.
I feel guilty, and I'm going to come clean. They gave the reservation to me, Greg.
Doesn't surprise me. Not in the least. But thank goodness I got a room for Friday night, and then Saturday Somebody bailed out that I was able to stay in the same hotel, although I had to switch rooms, which was remarkably okay. So there's many other stories that were pretty negative, but that was it. And again, of course, the most negative is the Trojans lost. Fans, we strongly encourage those of you watching Inside the Trojans Huddle on sites like YouTube or click the like and red subscriber buttons. It's greatly valued and appreciated, and it's free. You can also listen to Inside the Trojans Huddle on many available podcast sites. Be sure to check out WeAreSC.com, become a premium subscriber. All right, let's go. Third quarter, lightning round, Big Ten. Here we go, panel. We're going to go in the order of Mark, Eric, Chris, and Greg. Here come the questions. Fast and furious. Yes or no, the loss to Notre Dame was the worst Trojan loss to the Irish you have seen in your lifetime. Mark?
No.
Eric?
No, I don't think so. It wasn't great. It wasn't great.
38-0 still trumps everything in my lifetime.
Chris?
No, 1988 was the worst Notre Dame loss of my lifetime, and there will probably never be another one as bad. This wasn't even the biggest beatdown. 2017 was worse. I left at the half. It was 35-0 at the half. I was being taunted by Luther Bradley and the people sitting next to me, and I just got out of Dodge.
Wow.
You know, that game was so similar. That's the one that comes to mind for me, right? USC, a fumble on its first offensive play in that game, and Notre Dame punches it in, and that's it.
Game over.
To me, no. The worst loss was back 51-0 when McKay finally said afterwards, I'm going to get big players and we're never going to lose to them again. Question 2, yes or no, Saturday night's USC Notre Dame game was the coldest you've experienced in your trips to Notre Dame Stadium. Yes or no, Mark?
Oh.
Eric?
No, it was actually really nice.
Once the rain stopped, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Chris, you were in the stands.
No, I've definitely had colder experiences.
I've been there when I was out in the stands. That this was not the coldest, but when that wind starts blowing, it's a real challenge. Question 3, yes or no, the Trojans will lose at least 3 more games this season. Mark?
No.
Eric?
No, I don't think 3 more.
Chris?
No, but they better win this week, because if they lose this week, then the answer is yes.
Yeah, but we're not answering this next week.
But they're going to win, so it's not going to happen.
I echo what Chris says. They have to win this week, or I could see 3 more games this season. Question 4, 3, yes or no, the loss at Notre Dame and his 3 interceptions cost Caleb Williams a second Heisman Trophy. Mark?
And on the heels of Michael Penix's performance too against Oregon, I'm going to say no this week.
Okay. Eric?
No, it's not done yet. It absolutely cost him a spot in the top 3 right now, but he still gets to play Penix and Bo Nix until those games are done. I don't think you can say anything's finished.
Chris?
Yeah, he has to win out. If he wins out, he has a chance, although the bias against the guy winning it twice will still hurt him. But it's not over yet, any more than the Oregon State, horrible performance last year cost him it. It didn't.
I say his chances are very slim at this point. Not to the point where I would say no, but it's knocking on the door. He's going to have to win out against Nix and Penix and have big games to overcome it. It's not going to be easy. Question 5, yes or no, there will be a Coliseum sellout for the Utah game. Mark?
No.
Eric?
I think it's going to be close with like tickets distributed. I will be very interested to see how many people show up coming off of that game.
Chris?
Probably not, but USC fans, show up for this game. This season's not over. This is a team that can still accomplish some great stuff. And by the way, beating Utah after what they did to USC last year is really important, even if USC is not going to go to the playoff. So don't sell your tickets to a Ute. Don't leave them in the drawer at home and sit at home. Quit being lazy. Get in your car, get to the game, and cheer for this team. They need a home field advantage this week.
And I think the transfer portal, right, has made, especially what happened last year. I think again, and I think I said it before, if you ask this team before the season started, which game do they want I think it's Utah over UCLA and Notre Dame for this collection. I think that they were really bothered by the 2 Utah losses last season. I don't think there's a ton of guys on the team that grew up with the USC Notre Dame rivalry, with the USC UCLA rivalry. I think there's a lot of transplants here, and what happened last year means a lot.
That's a big issue, though, Eric. It doesn't matter where you came from. That should not.
Oh, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's what this week is for them.
I understand what you're saying. The story from the.
I think they could, as Eric said, pass out tickets. Do I think butts and seats where you say, wow, this is really packed? I think if SC would have beaten Notre Dame, no doubt about it, there would have been everybody would be there. But 5 o'clock kickoff isn't a bad time to have a game. It's not 7:30, so
perfect time. It's the best kickoff time.
Yeah, so it's possible, but we'll see. Question 6: yes or no? Although the Trojans are 6-1, has Lincoln Riley hurt his national image so far this season? I think we talked about this. For the record, Mark, yes or no?
I think the answer was there's a chink in his armor.
Okay, that's correct. Eric?
I think it confirmed the biases for this week that a lot of people had, and they got real loud about it.
Chris?
Yeah, he's on the ropes a little bit, but let's see what he does the second half of the year, because if they finish strong, it's not going to matter.
I say yes. Question 7, yes or no? The embarrassing loss to Notre Dame on national TV hurt USC's recruiting on both sides of the ball. Mark?
Yes, absolutely. Look, I'm going to actually make a comment on this. It was on week 4. USC was the 5th ranked team in the country. They won week after week and dropped. They lost and they dropped precipitously. It's affecting recruiting. Sending a message is part of showing your team is improving. And Lincoln Riley doesn't think you need to send a message. And if you're trying to make the playoffs, you can't start at number 18 in week 7 or 8. It's hard, even if you win the rest of your games.
Eric?
Her recruiting, I mean, recruiting is really struggling right now for USC. It's really struggling. That sure didn't help. It sure didn't help.
Chris?
I mean, it probably hurt, but recruiting's a disaster right now. And unless Lincoln Riley really does believe he can build a long-term championship contender through the portal, he's going to have to fix some things. And I think we know what that thing is.
What's going to happen is we're going to get a commitment from Jalen Harvey when we're done doing
We didn't. I just looked.
Penn State.
Penn State.
He did say Penn State?
Yeah.
Penn State.
Recruiting's hurting right now.
Yes, I think it did hurt USC's recruiting on both sides of the ball. We're getting closer to December in the signing period. Bottom line is SC will not win where they want to go with transfers. It's got to start, and they've got to change the perception right now. Hopefully they can do that. Question 9, sitting at a football game, do you prefer sitting high, medium, or low? Mark? Medium. Okay, Eric?
But so the only requirement that I have is not an aluminum bench with no back. Anything other than that, I'm okay with. I mean, medium, right? That place they had us against Oregon State last year in the temporary press box was about as low as I've sat. And it was a really odd experience to watch and cover a game from that point. So I'm going to say medium, but honestly, anything that has a back is fine.
Chris?
I want to be high. There are things you can't see down low. There's a reason they send coaches up into the box, and I do not want to be low where you can't actually see everything that's going on.
I'd rather be high so I can see the whole field. Question 10, yes or no? If the Trojans don't make the Pac-12 championship game, Caleb Williams will not participate in a lesser bowl game. Mark?
Yeah, I don't think he plays. Jordan Addison bowed out last year. Why would Caleb Williams risk his number 1 overall draft choice by getting injured? There's no reason for him to play.
Eric?
If he's healthy, he'll play. Caleb Williams is all right. So are we 6-6 in that bowl game, or is this like a still semi-high second tier thing? I think Caleb Williams is super competitive, and I don't think anybody's gonna tell him, or he's gonna not play in a football game when he's there. Now he may get some advice from people not to play, but I think if it was up to him, he would want to play as much football as he could.
If this was 2008 USC, he probably plays. But I don't know if this is going to be a one-loss team. Does he want to play in the Rose Bowl, I guess is going to be the question.
If it's the Rose Bowl, he'll probably play. If it's the Las Vegas Bowl, he probably shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's the Cotton Bowl? Does he play?
Cotton Bowl, he would probably play, my guess is. But, any lesser bowl, he shouldn't show up, frankly. It doesn't make sense for him to.
I don't think that Caleb Williams is a hypocrite in any shape or form. I think he's a total team player. If he decided for his team, he'll do it unless his agent or whoever says you're not going to do it, or his dad says, no way, son, you're not going to do this. That could be a real conflict, Bob. But I'll say right now he'll play. All right, bonus question. Pick it. Dallas, Los Angeles, Chicago, or New York. Mark?
Los Angeles. Wait, what is the question? Where I want to live or where Caleb Williams wants
You
to
take
play?
it any way you
It's your
want.
favorite word. Favorite word of all those.
I don't like any of those cities, to be honest with you.
That's all right. Eric?
I'll go LA.
All right, LA. All right. Eric.
Yeah, I think LA, Chicago are close too. And then obviously Chris's proximity to Dallas makes that a deep number 4.
That's
I think.
And the retort by young Arledge.
No, is there another Arledge on this program? Chicago and New York are fun for a short time, but they're way too cold. I can't live there. I prefer living in Dallas, but there are things about LA that I like a lot. I can deal with either one of them.
It's LA for me. I know growing up, beat LA meant nothing when I was in high school. Today, it bugs me when I hear beat LA because everyone is piling on. And I think that's why LA fans are actually becoming like fans across the country. Deep-seated, wear jerseys at Los Angeles. It is the deal. All right, let's keep moving here, okay? It's time for the transition. Boing. The ceremonial, there we go. Lighting of the Coliseum symbolic torch. Okay, a tribute to USC home games. If you haven't been to them, they light the torch between the third and fourth quarter. We'll do the same thing here on the huddle. And while we're doing that, a reminder to all recruitaholics, don't forget to watch WeAreSC.com's weekly recruiting video show, Recruiting Roundup, with nationally respected Scott Schrader, best in the business, and host Dylan Brazier. And a reminder as well to watch Friday's new 4 Down show with moderator Erik McKinney, along with myself, bringing you the latest info on USC's next opponent, the Utah Utes, and it's sponsored by Prize Picks. So let's go into some quick, we don't have many of them because there's an abbreviated Pac-12 schedule. Panel, it's time to make these predictions. So here we go. Pac-12, Saturday, October 21st, number 19, Washington State at number 8, Oregon, 12:30 p.m. ABC. Oregon's a 19-point favorite. Who do you got, Chris?
I think Oregon's a really good football team, and at home, I would have them favored over anyone in the country at home. So long as there's not a late 4th down that Dan Lanning can screw up, it should be Oregon. Easy.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm on board with it. After what happened to Washington State this past weekend, I think the air was let out. That team's ready to maybe take a tumble here.
Eric?
Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon's going to convert 5 of 9 4th downs and win that game.
Okay, I say that Oregon is gonna squash them. Washington State's ripe to get ripped. Number 25, UCLA at Stanford, 7:30 p.m. ESPN. UCLA is a 16.5-point favorite. Chris?
Despite the miracle comeback, Stanford is still awful. UCLA will roll.
Mark?
As much as I want to say Stanford will have another miracle comeback, UCLA is going to win this game.
Eric?
Yep.
I agree. Okay. ASU at number 5, Washington, 7:30 p.m. FS1, Washington, 28.5-point favorite. Chris?
This will not be a good football game.
Mark?
Yeah. Take Washington and the points.
Eric?
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing. It would be fun to see Washington play a good team after that Oregon win, but you're not going to get that with Arizona State there.
Okay, I agree. All right, our national game of the week, in our opinion, is our Cardinal and Gold pick of the week. Number 14, Utah. At number 18, USC, 5 p.m. Fox. SC's a 5.5-point favorite. Chris?
USC wins this game. Utah doesn't have enough offense, and Utah doesn't play USC in the Coliseum particularly well most of the time anyway. I actually think this one gets out of hand. I think USC wins this by a few touchdowns.
Mark?
Said that earlier in the show. Glad to see Chris came around. He's on my team.
Eric?
Yeah, provided it's not a 5-0 turnover disparity, right? I think USC does get right in this one.
SC will win if they get out early. Otherwise, it'll be a real slugfest. All right. Here's what the panel viewers have been waiting for. The questions and answers from the panel. We're going to get through this as many as we can because we saved some from last week. From SC, the one in the OC, how many more losses will SC have this season? Will they make it to the Pac-12 championship game? Free for all.
Yes.
One more loss. They're going to lose at Autzen. They're going to make the championship game.
Okay. I don't think they're going to make the championship game, so start throwing apples and darts and everything else, unless they figure out a way to improve their team on both sides of the ball. Question 2 from OAJRO101 in Pasadena, California. Why such slow play, lack of urgency, especially in the fourth? Why don't we utilize our tight end or taller receivers such as Deuce? Speak.
The tight end, that play to McCree to start the game was clearly a look they wanted and got. The idea that you're going to solve your passing problems by putting a true freshman out there. Deuce Robinson is incredibly talented. The idea that a true freshman is going to go out and solve those issues, I don't know if that's specifically the answer there. The wide receivers have struggled though. They've struggled to create separation, and Brendan Rice hasn't been that guy this year, but kind of showed up right there. There were a couple drops that he had in that one, and wasn't as reliable as kind of we'd come to expect of him with the way that he played so far this season. The lack of urgency, I don't know. We were talking about that in real time. Like you do not have enough time to go on a 4-minute drive at this point in the fourth quarter. You got to move a little bit. I can't really speak to why that happened.
I'll tell you what, if for whatever reason Lincoln Riley loved the tight end position when he was at Oklahoma, I think if he rolled out and threw it to somebody other than Lake McCree, you might catch the defense off guard. So it's weird how the tight end position has devolved in this offense. When at Oklahoma, their top receiver was a tight end.
Well, he was also a absolute stud in the NFL too. There's building around a guy, and then there's having a guy be kind of part of the offense. But I'm with you. Lake McCree's a good option. He's a good option, and Riley can clearly scheme the tight end open.
Have we seen one jump ball in the end zone when USC's in the red zone? Jude Wolf is pretty tall and he's got long arms. Try it one time just to see if it works.
If we're trying jump balls in the end zone, then we probably do need to bring Deuce Robinson in the game.
Point being, these are tall guys with long arms. Deuce Robinson, Jude Wolf, you got the personnel. But if the defense knows you're not going to do it, there's one less thing to scheme against.
From Blade Runner from Tejas, I assume that's Texas. How does Cliff Kingsbury avoid criticism?
He's not coach.
Criticism for what?
Exactly.
Look, Blade, he's not calling the defensive plays. He's not recruiting the offensive linemen. He's just offering a comment from time to time. So I'm not sure that we can pin this one on Cliff as much as we want to for his earlier betrayal.
All I can tell you is I don't know what he does at practice, but during the game, I see him leaning into those timeout huddles, making sure he's a part of it. So,
all right, question 4 from Redondo Beach SC. Any thoughts on what it's going to take to have an elite offensive line? I don't think we've signed a top 100 high school OT since Austin Jackson. Seems like we've been using guys at tackle who are better suited to play at the guard position, especially when they get to the NFL. If you're not going to do the NIL thing, I'm struggling to find an answer. Anybody got a quick answer to that?
No.
USC's not going to recruit at an elite level if they're not going to pay high school players.
Especially big time tackles. I mean, quarterbacks first, right? But they can recruit.
But quarterback, he can still land because a quarterback realizes that Lincoln Riley adds huge value to them.
Yes.
And
offensive tackles specifically, my read certainly is that they're some of the guys asking for the most up front.
And you're pulling those guys out of Texas and Florida and Georgia. Those guys aren't coming to USC when other people are offering them money.
Well, and that's a good point right there, Chris. There's different levels of NIL payments. First, you got to pay the recruit just to come visit. Then you got to pay the recruit to put them in your top 5 or top 10 list. And then you got to pay them to come and actually commit. So that's what's going on with recruiting right now.
You look at especially Lincoln Riley. I don't want to say he lucked out, right? But when you look at coaches taking over really bad programs, Lincoln Riley maybe had the best setup in terms of the offensive line that he had coming back. Like that was a good offensive line for a bad program. Typically, if you're that bad of a program, your offensive line is in shambles. He had a really good group. The group behind them was not ready and is not ready. They got Elijah Page. I think he has a chance to be pretty good. Not ready. You can't ask a guy to be ready right now as a left tackle. But the point is right. These are a bunch of guards at the next level that you're asking to play tackle and center and do these kinds of things. There isn't a really prototypical, again, Tyron Smith is not prototypical. He's elite, but that kind of looking guy, even Austin Jackson, right? Like there isn't that experienced kind of guy. We've heard about Jonah Monheim for years. He's an interior guy, and Josh Henson is playing him there because he's the best left tackle on the roster right now. But you're having to play guys out there at tackle that maybe aren't, the types of tackles that USC has run through before. And yeah, you look down the line. I think this class that they brought in, this group of offensive linemen who are true freshmen now, I think there's some guys that can play there. But you got to start building up behind them because SC missed on a few years, and you're seeing that now, having to go to the portal, having to fill holes, and it just isn't there. There isn't that continuity where last year you had guys that had played hundreds of snaps together, and you could see it last year, and you see it this year when it's not there.
Would you guys make any type of adjustments this late into the season where putting players back where they're more comfortable? We talked about this after the game on Saturday. Do you put Jared Kingston back at left tackle where he played all last season at Washington State? Do you put Jonah back at guard where he's more comfortable? Do you put Justin where Emmanuel Prignon is playing right now because he's obviously having some execution problems? I'm referring to left guard, not to Justin. And then put Killian O'Connor at center. You've replaced Michael Tarquin at right tackle early in the last 2 games. If you're going to keep doing that, put Mason Murphy out there. Does that spark something? Does that?
I mean, it's hard to know because we don't actually see these guys play in practice. I don't know what they're doing. But look, clearly what's going on right now isn't good. That doesn't mean it's not the best that they can do. But yeah, it's grim. And look, you will find some guys that are playing at a lower level who are going to jump in the portal who could be elite offensive tackles. That could happen. But when those guys do that, the amount of money that a guy like that can command is a lot more than what you'd have to pay these high school kids anyway. I think I understand that Lincoln Riley doesn't want to pay for play with high school kids. Fine. But that means he's going to be recruiting and land somewhere between 10 and 15 every single year. And you're not going to win national championships that way.
I think that it's an interesting thing too, the way Josh Henson talked about why he flipped those guards, right? Because when players come in with maybe some bad habits, you want to break that down, and flipping them allows you to do that. Now, I think at this point we can say it's clear that those guys have struggled making that flip, because Jarrett Kingston came in and the thought was this guy has been unbelievable at left tackle, and even some left guard in this conference has played really, really well out there. Emmanuel Perdona in that second transfer portal window was the guy everybody wanted, played pretty well at right guard in his first year. But that idea of we want to kind of break them down to build up the habits we want, that really speaks to recruiting really good high school offensive linemen so that you can do that from the beginning and not have to do that with kind of the veteran guys coming in, unless it's just some guy transferring for some reason and he is a slam dunk starting left tackle and you're going to stick him right there. But anyone that you're having to move late in their career, I think maybe it's okay to start accepting that there's going to be kind of a slow progress there.
Here's the thing, and I know that we're talking a lot on this, but it's really important. So if we don't get to all the questions, we don't. But here's the thing: you can pull a wide receiver or a corner from the portal, and continuity doesn't really matter. It doesn't. If your job is to man up on the other team's best wide receiver, it doesn't matter if you've played 2 years with the safety that's next to you. It doesn't matter. Wide receiver doesn't matter at all. Running back, it doesn't matter. The offensive line, it matters. And to think that you can pull in 2, 3, 4 new guys every year, throw them in there, and it's going to work well, I think is a mistake. Even if you don't want to pay the type of money some of these other programs are paying, you may have to consider doing it for elite offensive line. You may just have to, even if you don't want to.
And when it's the two guards, you have nobody on the line playing next to somebody that they had come into the season playing with.
Like I said, you bring in a guy who played left tackle pretty well last year for Washington State and say, you know what, you're going to go play right guard this year. That's a big change. Your footwork is just different. Everything is different.
All right, we're going to get a few more of these questions in. If we delay the questions, our apologies to you. Some of them are NIL questions that you were courteous enough to send in to us. We're not going to discard them, but the Notre Dame situation and so on. So we're going to take a few more here, and then we're going to call it a day. This is from JM641 from the Midwest. Given that the widely held view that Caleb is less threatening when confined to the pocket, why on earth did we not have more designed rollout type plays that would give him more run pass optionality while forcing the defense to shift with him? Comment?
The reason you don't do that is because you take away half the field from the quarterback. That's the reason coaches don't do it when they don't do it. I suspect we're going to see some of that now because it's pretty clear you can't leave him in the pocket just getting abused. That's not going to work.
There aren't a ton of college quarterbacks where coaches let them read the whole field. Caleb Williams can and has, and they let him do that. That's a strength for him, that when you run a play, he can attack the entire field. Not everybody can do that. So again, when you're cutting off half of that, you're taking away from what he can do really well. I mean, the questions posed as less threatening. You're still going to bet on Caleb Williams in the pocket if he has time. He can absolutely hurt you if he can get time in the pocket. That's the key. Is, do you have to roll him out to give him time to throw? And if that's the case, you have to do whatever you can to give him as much time as possible without guys right in his face.
All right. Question 6 from Trojan in the Valley. I'm going to read this as is. No editing here. No, well, you'll understand. From Trojan in the Valley. What an absolute shit show. Seriously, worse than Helton, Hackett, Kiffin, Tollner, Sark, Smith, considering the talent we have. Absolutely embarrassing on all levels. Panel, what can be done to salvage the season?
How long after the game do you think this guy waited to send this question? This is during the game, right? This is before the final bell.
First of all, I take issue with the first sentence. When you say worse than Helton, Hackett, Kiffin, you know what? With every single one of those coaches, I can show you disasters at this level. So that's not true. But it was obviously very disappointing. He gets a bunch of letter grades. You can imagine that most of them are bad. And I don't disagree with any of them. What can be done to salvage this season? I think we talked a little bit about that as we went on, the things that need to change.
And if you're looking for other words to use in the future, Greg, poo-poo, crap, caca, all work just as well as the S.
Oh, I knew I could count on you for that, Mark.
You know the word.
Question 7 from Romy. Do you feel that these players need to be more challenged? I feel the coaches need to get in their faces, do more chewing. We are 2 TDs behind in the fourth, and players and coaches are patting asses and smiling as if we are 2 TDs ahead. Here is my attitude. We may lose the game, but we will win the fight. You will know you were playing USC. Comment?
Coaches have to be who they are. Clay Helton would try to do the gruff, tough coach speak, and players tuned out because it's not who he was. Lincoln Riley can't do that. You have to be who you are. If you put on a show, it's worse than whatever you feel, might be bad about this. That's my take on it. You need to be who you are through ups and downs and all of that.
You do need some guys like that on the staff. I mean, Brandon Hancock, a couple of weeks ago when I was interviewing him, was talking about how Pete had those guys. It wasn't Pete, but he had those guys. Ed Orgeron being one obvious example. But yeah, that's not who Lincoln Riley is. He would look ridiculous and wouldn't be taken seriously by the players.
People recognize phony real fast. You can't try and be a tough guy if you're not a tough guy in real life. It just doesn't work.
All right, we'll end with this question because it's coming from across the country. From Trojan Forever from Philadelphia. Please, please, please give me some hope for the game against Utah. I'm afraid a loss there will mean at least 4 losses for the season. And a return to the agony of the Helton era. I will just comment quickly on this. Nothing could be more agonizing than the Helton era, believe me. Guys, anything you want to add?
Well, a loss this week probably does mean 4 losses on the season.
Yes.
But I don't think USC is going to lose to a Utah team that can't move the football. I think Caleb Williams will find a way to score points. I think Lincoln Riley will find a way to score points, and USC will win this game.
And I think look, we're still too early to talk about the offseason. There's still an absolutely huge kind of chasm where this season could go, right? In terms of positive or negative, a ton of stuff that can still happen. The off season though is going to be really fascinating. Staffs do not stay together completely the way USC's did last off season. I think just in terms of that, you can expect changes. And I think the idea of this being the Helton era is going to slowly go away just in the minutes and hours as the Notre Dame game gets kind of put in the rearview mirror. Like, I think there's so much reaction to that. But I do think that Lincoln Riley is going to have some really major serious decisions to make in terms of program building and all of that. I think the idea, because they won so much last year, was this is it. This is the program, and here it is, and he did it, and it's fixed, and this is the way to go. I think there's still a lot of building for him and answers and kind of plans that he needs to keep putting in place for this program before we even start to guessing if this is going to go off the rails and be that kind of. How long was Helton was here for? Like 20 years, right? Is that what it felt like? So not ready at all to go that way. And the hope for sure is that there's a kind of a 180 feeling about this program after the Utah game compared to after the Notre Dame game.
There's a lot of concern that this is going to turn into 2012 real fast. That whole unfinished business season. everyone's this is why you don't expect anything, because when the expectation level is put here and you're only getting to here, these are the types of questions we get from the fans. We knew that USC had to address their defensive holes from last season, and we thought they went out and got the right players. So now you're thinking, all right, well, they met that expectation. They went out and filled holes. They put Band-Aids over, where they needed them, but you're still hemorrhaging. So to what Erik was talking about, what type of changes are happened during the off season? I think Lincoln Riley is smart enough to recognize more changes need to be made, and it's not necessarily just replacing players. I don't need to spell it out.
No, look, that's the reality is USC does have the talent defensively to be a top 25 defense. They do. With Utah or Oregon State defensive staff coaching this football team, they would be playing much better defense. That's just the reality. I don't care if anybody likes it. That's the reality. Those teams are better coached. They know their assignments. They play harder. They play better. And it's not because Oregon State is wildly more talented than USC. They're not. It's just not true.
All right. A reminder again, if you have a question or comments for our panel, go to the WeAreSC members message board, click on the thread that pertains to Inside the Trojans Huddle for viewer questions or comments. Again, we will get to those of you that didn't hear it. Your questions, they're NIL questions. They're what we call timeless, but I know you want to hear it and we want to give you answers. So be patient with us. But some of the topics that we had questions were pertaining to this past weekend. So again, if you enjoyed Inside the Trojans Huddle, please click on the like and red subscriber buttons. We greatly appreciate your support. Be sure to check out WeAreSC.com, become a premium subscriber. That'll do it for Tuesday's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. A reminder to watch 4 Downs on Friday and 5 Things on YouTube following Saturday night's Utah game. So until next Tuesday, when we review the Utah game, preview the Cal game, present a new Big Ten lightning round and all things USC football. A big thank you again to our outstanding panelists, Marc Kulkin, Erik McKinney, Chris Arledge, and a special thank you to all of you for watching or listening to Inside the Trojans Huddle. Have a great week. Beat the Utes. And until next Tuesday, this is your moderator, Greg Katz, reminding you all to fight on, everybody.